Hi, this is Bill Stark with LeaderGov, and we're glad you're with us today. Each week, LeaderGov is going to share leadership lessons from one of 6 characteristics of high-performing leaders, the things you can do to become a high-performing leader as a local government leader. This week's lesson is on servant leadership, and specifically how it contrasts from traditional leadership. There are a lot of definitions of leadership, but I'll just throw one out. Perhaps it's knowing what needs to be done, knowing why it needs to be done, and then marshaling the resources to get the job done. Mostly it's about the goal, it's about the mission, and where we want to go with the organization. Servant leadership, though, is primarily about people and how you can serve people and better their lives. And as they're equipped better, they're able to better serve in their role. There are 10 qualities or attributes of servant leaders. And Robert Greenleaf, who is the modern day founder of servant leadership, developed these back in the 70s. We're providing you with a list of servant leader qualities and definitions on your PDF handout, so you can study those later. But I have a question for you. As a local government leader, do you typically lead from your head or do you lead from your heart? In other words, from your head, do you mainly think about what needs to be done today, what goal needs to be accomplished, where people need to be, what they need to be doing? Well, we certainly need that. But do you also think about the people themselves? Do you think of what they need, what you could do to benefit their life that day? And as I said, we need both. We need to focus on the goal, we need to focus on the project that we're working on, but we also need to be thinking about the potential of people and what we can do to better equip them to do their jobs. So now what I'd like to do is share with you 3 or 4 ideas that contrast leadership and servant leadership, so you get a sense of how they're different and how they complement each other. So for instance, communication. One of the characteristics of a leader is that you communicate well, that you communicate clearly and concisely to your team on a regular basis. We need that. But in servant leadership, the emphasis is more on listening to your team members, to get their thoughts, their input, and really listening for understanding. Secondly is the whole aspect of people. In leadership, people are oftentimes seen as assets, or they're seen as resources to get the job done, assets to be leveraged. And of course, that's true. But in servant leadership, we're thinking about how can I invest in the individual to help them grow as an employee, as a team member, and as a person. Then you think about awareness. As a leader, you need to be aware of where you are with your goals, with your strategies, with your projects, and certainly as a leader you're probably acutely aware of where you are with your specific goals, and that's important. In servant leadership, though, we want to be aware of some different things. We want to be aware of ourselves, our strengths and weaknesses, and we certainly want to be aware of what others are thinking around us, what the mood is, what the sense is of the team. And also goals. With leadership, of course, there's a tremendous focus on goals and vision and where we're going and how we're going to get there, and that's super important. But in servant leadership, it's really about investing in others, focusing on their development. If they're better at what they do because you've helped equip them, you're probably going to reach your goals better with less hassle. So now I'd like to ask you a question, and it's a test. Are you acting as a servant leader? And here's the question. Are the people that you serve on your team growing as people? Put another way, while being served, are they becoming healthier? Are they becoming wiser, freer, more autonomous? And are they too likely to be servant leaders themselves? What we'd like to do now is transition and have you hear from some local government leaders on this important topic of servant leadership.
Well, Bill, as a servant leader, which I believe I do follow, it's important to me to develop a healthy organization that supports, the individual growth of employees, promoting their overall performance and the performance of the organization, which ultimately has a positive impact on the community that you work in. Now, by having a culture, and I stress a culture, which I believe we do have here, or we're creating here at the City of Fayetteville, where you develop people allowing them to reach their full capabilities, developing their goals, and providing them with some level of control. in their decision making, you're going to positively impact the performance of your organization and the performance of those individuals. So what I'm saying here, Bill, is by caring for and developing your employees, I personally can better accomplish the day-to-day operations of the city of Fayetteville. So I think you develop people, you can delegate more. I live by the principle that you spend 80% on 20%, 80% of your time on 20% of your priorities. I live by that. And I believe if you develop your team, that process is even, it's helped or assisted in order. We're going to put our 60 to 70 hours in some weeks. We know that that's part of the job. And it's making time throughout the week to make sure you develop your people. And I think by being a servant leader, I find that balance.
At LeaderGov, we always want to challenge you and encourage you and inspire you to put into practice the things that you learn during these leadership lessons. So with respect to servant leadership, we would just ask you to study the definitions of a servant leader and think about how being a servant leader might benefit you and your department, and maybe one or two things that you need to work on that you're perhaps weak in. Secondly, we would like for you to go back and think about that servant leader test. Are the people that you're serving growing as people? That's an important question. Lastly, we'd like for you to think about a challenge that you have right now in your work as a local government leader. What things are going on around you that need attention? And is there a way to incorporate some of these servant leader principles into the challenge you face with a person or with a project? We also always want to encourage you to put these ideas into practice with your team. So one of the suggestions we would have is that you print out the servant leader qualities, provide them to your team, and ask them, are you leading in each of these areas, in each of these qualities, and have them rate you. It's a little risky, but we think there's a huge payoff. Lastly, we would suggest to you that you print out these servant leader qualities and provide them to your team and encourage your team to read over them and perhaps begin to incorporate some of those qualities into their work. We thank you for being with us today. We're excited to be able to serve you this way, specifically with this servant leadership mentality. We hope you have a great day.